It all began like this. A child brought a postage stamp to school, and Ashton-under-Hill Village School became very interested in the Elizabethans. In fact, stepping into this classroom is something like walking into the 16th century. For here are tailors making Elizabethan clothes, ruffs and doublets and hose, and dressing puppets and themselves, and gauntlet makers embroidering with beads and seeds. Weavers weaving Elizabethan rush matting, which of course was floor covering for Elizabethan farms and cottages. Cooks cooking Elizabethan recipes and stuffing a boar's head with Elizabethan herbs. Chandlers making Elizabethan candles with melted tallow and string wicks. And why not? These children are receiving an imaginative experience, which gives them an insight into life in their village many years ago. It provides them with food for a great variety of creative experiences and activities. And their head teacher, Mrs. Eccles, can also see that the basic skills of reading, writing, and mathematics, together with the first foundations of science and drama, are related to these activities.
She'll receive the children's cooperation because of their love of Elizabethan pageantry. The clothing of the rich was never more splendid, the detail more elaborate, the embroidery more exquisite. Visual delight, pleasure in Elizabethan sounds and scents, the smell of herbs, the taste of food, sensory experiences of all kinds, and a feeling for the laboriousness of life, when everything was done by hand. Classroom is active and busy. Each child goes about his own work quietly and purposefully. No one's bored or idle waiting for Mrs. Eccles' attention. They know where to find materials to get on with the job. And this they will do, not from any force of competition, but by their own individual enthusiasm generated out of interest. The teacher, who has initiated this path of keen discovery, is now freed to give her particular attention to one or two children who need help in sequential activities such as mathematics, though she'll find time to approve and examine critically the quality of craftsmanship. The work continues throughout an integrated day. Adults divide knowledge into formal subjects such as history and geography. To the young child, knowledge is one, and is often pursued for its own sake with passionate curiosity. The children move freely about the classroom, talking, helping each other, comparing notes. Everyone has his chance to excel at something, and they measure their progress against their own previous achievement. They're not in competition with each other, so the less able are not discouraged, and the bright children don't become complacent. The teacher can observe them all individually and make sure that no one misses out on some important aspect of learning. The children set themselves high standards and take pleasure in presenting their work well. If they find themselves at a loss, they turn for inspiration to reference books on period costume, which Mrs. Eccles, anticipating their needs, has provided from the county library.
It's only a small step from studying the kind of clothes Elizabethans wore to studying the kind of houses they lived in. And the children were able to do this when they went along to a nearby village to look at a Tudor cottage with their teacher, Mrs. Eccles. And these are some of the drawings and notes that they made about the cottage.
We went to see our very old house. It is about 500 years old. The framework on it is made out of oak.
Inside was an ingle nook. We looked up the chimney and we could see things sticking out. They were to help little boys up there to clean it.
The meat is spitting and hissing on the spit pole. As the spit boy turns it, it rattles and creaks on its support. The aroma of roasting meat floats out into the cold dusk air. The master walks in. As his boots crash down on the month-old rushes, a sickly smell rises from the floor. A cat mews in a warm corner as the cook carries in a platter of fresh loaves. The cooking pot bubbles over the log fire. The tasty fragrance of stew fills the room.
Notice the quality of writing which results from first-hand experiences of this kind.
I twist upward and upward, and my banisters are used like a plaything. Over the years I became weaker, but now I seem to be quiet. In my old days I knew when the servants came up with heavy breaths, I felt their downward push. As the farmer's wife ascends, her dress swayed in all directions, rustling like the trees in winter. Her light shoes flew swiftly from step to step.
The creak of the stairs and the thrust of the servant's feet. The farmer's wife is complete, even to her shoes. The next piece of writing is in the person of a young servant boy, sleeping on a rush bed in the attic.
The scurrying of rats and the howl of the wind. The sound of merry laughter drifts through the floorboards from downstairs. All adds to the loneliness of this attic. I hear the clashing of the tankards, but I have only the mice for company. It's draughty in here, and the rushes feel cold and sharp. The log that I have for a pillow feels hard and rough. It's dreary and dark, just a glimmer of light through a cracked slate. I can hear the crashing of shutters and the wind in the trees. Horses are snorting, guests are departing. The house is silent and eerie. Only the creaks are awake.
Lindsay is taking a rubbing of a piece of old timber, and Christopher of a linen fold panel. Knowledge can be gained through the sense of touch, as well as through the eyes and ears. Here is a use for practical mathematics. Measurements can be made now, which may be used later in the classroom. A house where the construction can be seen clearly enables you to judge the stress and strain of oak beams and to measure the angles between them. Squint holes were used for spying on strangers who might be robbers. Light must have been scarce at all times and houses dark, particularly during the winter months.
The Tudors made triangles with oak beams at the top of the house, because a triangle is the most rigid and so the strongest shape. Beneath the triangle there's an oblong. It has got 4 pieces of oak coming down to make it rigid.
The calculations you hear now were made later, only the data was gathered on the site.
To find the height of Atkinson House, scale 1 inch represents 5 feet. We drew line AB 6 inches long. Each inch represents 5 feet. BC is a vertical line to represent the house. We drew a perpendicular line AD 17/20 of an inch long. I am 4 foot 3 inches tall up to my eyes. So using our scale, this is 4/5 add 1/20 of an inch equals 16/20 of an inch plus 1/20 of an inch equals 17/20 of an inch.
Mathematics of this quality are rooted in the practical experience of measuring and finding out for yourself.
I then put the protractor on D, just as I did at the house, and then tilted it until 59 degrees fell on the line DA. We marked the sight angle and joined it to CB. CE is approximately 4 1/4 inches long. So according to our scale, this is 21 feet 3 inches plus 4 feet 3 inches equals 25 feet 6 inches.
As you can see, they brought some of the waste building material back to the classroom, including pieces of old wood there that came from the cottage, glass, plaster, and even some of the original nails. Now, over here, we've got an expert wattler and dauber. At least I think that's what it is. I haven't a clue. But which is the wattle and which is the daub?
It's the wattle, woven willow, and daub is clay mixed with horsehair and a bit of straw.
You go on and show me what you do then. Take some of the horsehair. And the clay. And then what?
Just plaster it on.
Do you have to push it down well?
Quite.
It's a mucky old job, isn't it? I see. What did they use this for then?
Well, they used to put it inside wooden beams, and it used to stop the draft coming into the house.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Did it keep the rain out as well?
Yeah.
Did it? It's
And
waterproof.
It was set.
Yeah. Of course, it goes hard after a time, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite strong too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you see any down at the cottage?
Yeah, we did.
Did you? What was it looking like? Because it was rather old, I expect.
It was all stringy.
Was it? It had started to break up, I expect.
Mrs. Eccles, in the background, is moving from table to table, making suggestions and noticing progress. At the same table as the weavers, a mathematician is carrying forward his work on rigid shapes, constructing a triangle. Mathematics are by no means neglected in this small village school. If we had time, we could show you work as sophisticated and advanced as that in many a larger city school. Computation, number relationships, quantity and area measurement, fractions and graphs all take place along with other skills. Writing, for example. The children concluded there was so much debate about the authorship of Shakespeare's plays because he wrote his name so badly with a quill pen.
I started off with quite a thin feather, and I split it down one side and removed all the white powdery stuff. This wasn't very easy. When that was done, I had to bash the pointed end to the correct shape according to my instructions, but I didn't succeed. I still don't know where it went wrong. Then came the difficult part of trying to make the nib. That ended disastrously. The end fell off. I tried it with my best feather, all went well until it came to making the nib. I had one unsuccessful attempt. When I tried it again, it came off easily. My quill at last works well.
Better, no doubt, than Shakespeare's. At least the calligraphy is better. When a child's composing a poem, his writing may suffer, but he will copy it out with pleasure in his best writing for display on the classroom wall if good standards are set by the other children's work. This is a description of the house presented in drawings as well as in prose.
What are you making, Susan?
Such petticoats.
Elizabethan cakes, are they?
Yes.
They look jolly good. What about you, James?
Elizabethan kisses.
They sound lovely. We've got some here too, haven't we, on the corner of the table? Where do you get the recipes from for this, Susan?
In that book.
And they're Elizabethan recipes?
Yes.
I've got some here too. Sir Walter Raleigh's Merry Cakes. This was a favourite breakfast cake of Queen Elizabeth I. 1 pound of fine flour, 1 piece of butter the size of a filbert, nut, if larger, no harm will be worked, 1/4 of a pint of cold spring water, 1 pinch of salt. And then he says, the cook that cannot mix these is no cook. And cooks used herbs too, didn't they?
Yes.
And here is a display of herbs, collected and labelled by the children.
these are some of the herbs they used. They used herbs for 3 different reasons, we've discovered. This is one that they use for strewing on their floors.
Lavender cotton.
Yes, to hide some of the unpleasant smells.
That's a good idea.
Yes. This one, of course, bay, we still use today. This one was used for culinary purposes. And then we found in an old herbal that they use many of them for medicinal purposes.
Where did these come from?
Well, we're very fortunate because in the village we have a botanist who lets us use any of his plants.
And he welcomes the children there, I expect.
Yes, we go to his garden.
Talking about the children, Mrs. Eccles, how many have you, in fact, in this school now?
88 children in this school.
88?
Yeah.
And that'll be how many classes?
3 classes.
So something like 30-odd per class?
Yes.
And you've got all ages in different classes?
Yes.
You've got 5s to 7s, have you, in one class?
Yes, and 9s to 11s in this class.
And this will, of course, cover a range of ability as well.
Yes.
What do you think are the disadvantages from a teacher point of view, of living out here and working in a village school?
Well, I think we have to be careful that we take the children into cities so that they see crowds and see supermarkets and see cathedrals. So every year, this class have pen friends in a city, and we exchange for a day.
So they get some of the contact in there with the busy life.
Yes, and the city children come here.
But the advantages, you would say, outweigh the disadvantages?
Yes, definitely. I
Like
think
what?
So. Well, the children are very secure. Because there are only 88 children in the school, we all know them very well. And often we can work together as a school.
And what about working together as a school with the village?
Yes, this works as well, especially in this school, because our hall is a village hall as well.
Is it?
Yes.
So you share it with them?
Yes, it's a village hall at night.
That's good.
This means that many outsiders come in. This actually is where we met Mr. Sidwell. So it's
one of your contacts?
Yes.
Are the villagers really interested in the children and life of the school?
Yes, lots of the outsiders that come into the hall talk to the children about the work that they've done, that we've displayed. And they bring us in beads and bits of lace that they find.
Do they?
Yes.
This is great for the child's point of view, isn't it? To know that adults are interested.
Yes. Oh, yes. It's great encouragement to them.
Boar's head, stuffed with herbs, is a favourite Elizabethan dish.
The long leaf with the serrated edge reminds me of a fresh spring morning with dew on the grass. It has a sort of green smell. The mint with the jagged edges has a spicy scent that reminds me of a kitchen in far-off India where they are making a curry. The long stringy herb, which looks like a tree in winter, smells like a hot summer evening with dust hanging in the air. The bay leaf has a hot and horrible smell.
Scent is a doorway into history, as well as sight, sound and touch. Stuffing an orange with cloves to make a pomander. The boar's head, covered in gelatine and decorated with piped cream. A small orange and some parsley are put in its ears. A village community recognises and appreciates a good cook. Some other children in the classroom have been listening to a recent BBC Schools broadcast, which has been dealing with 16th century music. Tallow gives a beautiful light, but you didn't waste candles when they had to be made spoonful by spoonful. Why does it become opaque as it cools? At what point does tallow melt? And what volume of melted fat do you need to make one candle? How quickly do they burn? And how long do they last? Can you make a candle clock? In another corner, some children are doing embroidery, beautiful collage and applique work. Again, they turn to good Elizabethan designs and well-illustrated reference books. A bowl of peacock's feathers in the corner, and all the coloured walls and scraps of material and silver paper Mrs. Eccles has been able to collect from her village friends. Flowers, salamanders, griffins and fabulous Elizabethan beasts. Again, seeds, sequins, buttons and beads are used along with chain stitch, buttonholing and other sewing skills. Sewing is not allowed to be too laborious and unrewarding, at least in the early stages. The children at this school have a great feeling for texture. Sometimes they make pictures especially for blind people to feel and enjoy. Their work is displayed in the classroom and in the entrance hall. This ship is embroidered, but others have been painted or modelled.
Blustering winds ripped rags, soaring high up in the gale. The sky gets darker, suddenly, crash, bang. Over the sides, water cascades. The rocks get nearer, then boom, in flows the water, down we sink.
At the end of the classroom is a display of Elizabethan furniture, and Mrs. Eccles talks to the children and draws together some of the things they found out about it.
Where the classroom was built, what used to be here?
Some old houses.
Some old houses. Was it found just like this?
No, just in bits.
Yes, these bits here, the Elizabethan panelling, and who gave it to us? Mrs. Stevens, yes. How about this? What's this?
A cauldron.
A cauldron, yes, good. What was it used for?
For cooking things in.
Where did they have it, Robert?
By the fire, they hung it up on the spit.
Do you remember what their fireplace was called?
Inganook.
Did they hang it on the spit?
Yeah, I think so.
On the spit? Did they?
They hung it on the wall. There's a big hooks.
Yes, and this hung where?
On top.
Above, yes, above the fire. What did they put inside, Nigel?
Do they stew with it?
Yes, stew. What were some of the other things they put inside that we've collected? Do you remember?
Herbs.
Yes, herbs. Why did they often have herbs? Or always have
Make
herbs?
it taste better.
Yes, why? Why did they need the meat to taste better? What time of the year especially did they need it to taste better?
Christmas.
Yes, Christmas time, back Christmas time on the spring. Why?
Because
Why didn't their meat taste very nice then?
they had stored it for so long.
From Shakespeare's handwriting, the children went on to his work, Macbeth, double, double, toil and trouble. At this age, fear and wickedness can be controlled by means of creative writing.
A whisker from a bloodthirsty hound, running around freely. Dip it in octopus ink, a monkey's hand all stung and bitten, plastered in blood from an alligator's liver. Stir until a blue star, stir until it's black as tar. A squash spider with blue blood, found on Christmas morn, just before dawn. A wolf's howl, weird and strange, silverfish's antennae, a slimy eye of a hammerhead shark, found 'em in the air on a cold frosty night. Stir until a blue star, stir until it's black as tar. An icicle plucked in summer, the liver of a wolf that runs on one leg. 2 ounces of storm cloud gathered on a black night. Stir until a blue star. The mixture's now as black as tar. Whoosh!
Filings from an elephant's toe, filed by a witch's fingernail. Spider's blood, lava from a volcano. Squashed up worms fresh from the ground, slimy water from fish's scales. Throw them all in, open the lid, stir it twice,
out comes the deadly poison. Sing, dance, stir, laugh.
The masks and costumes they've made are used for dramatic work later in the hall, with their own music and blood-curdling effects.